Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're taking a look at Rotation Control Blood. Why? Because Rotation Control Blood isn't a very common deck, but it's one that I found that looked quite interesting. We've covered most of the more common decks, so I thought why not look at something a little different now. So this deck is not perfect, of course. You would be better off running 2 Abyss than running 2 Blood Hungry. I just currently don't have any Abyss, and I'm happy with Blood Hungry as a pretty nice alteration to the deck. So Abyss definitely would make your win con a lot easier, although this is more of a grinder deck to begin with, so you don't necessarily need Abyss to close a game when you can just grind your opponent out, as you'll see in these videos. So it's a very interesting deck, and I had a bit of fun with playing it. It's not as good, of course, as the Unlimited deck because it doesn't have as many tools, but it gets the job done and can be quite fun to play. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and we'll get right into it. Okay, first up we've got Runes. Not too bad a match for this deck overall.
I guess you're looking for a fight.
Because you're running so many clears, it's not hard to kind of beat out early Daria boards, especially if you do mulligan hard for your clears. Daria is so inconsistent that most of the time they won't high roll, and the rare times that they do really aren't that bad. So being able to throw a Bahamut to the board early is always important, especially if we needed to direct counter this 2-2. That or just removing straight out with Hungering Horde is also quite good, although Hungering Horde can be a little bit better during the mid to late game when you are targeting 2 or 3 Ogglers in a single turn. So usually that's the better way to go. When we get a chance to drop our Pure Hearted Singer, go for those early draws.
It's knowledge I seek. How interesting.
And of course, the Magic Owl. Probably the crux of most spell boost decks. It's really kind of unavoidable with how its effect functions. Lucky with the expansion rolling around very soon, it's not going to be an issue for very long. So it's always nice. See, a full board on 5 nearly. Not too hard to remove the majority of the actual threats here. I mean, we do only leave up the 4/4, which really isn't that bad. Even with that extra enhance, it's just not that bad to deal with. I mean, we get to remove it fairly easily. They're only left with 2 cards. Their only chance would be to Daria out here and get a new hand, and even then, it probably won't be the biggest end of the world due to us having a pretty nice setup going forward. Blood Drinker's Brand, Blood Moon, Emeralda, Blood Hungry Matriarch are all insane clear cards. Lucky for us, they really didn't have anything last turn, but even if they did, it would not have been hard to deal with. As long as you can plan your hands around what to expect, it's really not too hard to counter this kind of deck. So we do see a Ogla and a Chimera. Pretty much perfect, honestly. We can clear these out pretty much instantly with no issue at all.
Time for fun and games. Hey, check this out.
Unfortunately, we are just above what we want to be at, but we do get to just be bold clear anyway, so going for that removes any kind of threat from the board and lets us get some more face damage in. So there's another Ogler and Conjure Golem, and another Ogler. I mean, we got Blood Drinker's Brand, so we're not in any kind of trouble here. And they're now out of cards, so basically if they don't draw Daria, it's an easy win. If they do draw Daria, it becomes a little more tricky, but it's still not an impossible matchup, and really not that hard if you actually think about your games. An insane high roll in turn 4, while yes, being almost impossible to beat, really is so uncommon that it's not an issue. It's like the old Atomy auto meme where people were complaining because Atomy was just, you know, Atomy. Now it's a bit of a problem because it's super consistent, but in the past it was very rare and warranted really no changes at the time. So Blood Hungry Matriarch clearing out their board, setting up pretty nicely for next turn. especially with the Rich the Archdemon, it's actually not that bad a card. It's not a great card, but it's definitely not bad. And this deck so far has had lots of potential in rotation, so I was very interested to at least test it out. Plus, got to keep you guys interested in what different things coming, so why not? So we get to go face, and we can set up our snakes. Our snakes are absolutely crazy because they are really hard to deal with, although they are a little slow, so that's where honestly things like Abyss are a little bit better than Blood Hungry, because Abyss can be set up and the snakes can follow pretty much immediately, which then requires them to clear a lot more. Also, Abyss doesn't tend to have any natural counters necessarily, because most people aren't expecting an Abyss. So this person does go quite hard, looking to absolutely ward out here. All we need is for at least 2 snakes to survive here. Which worked out well, because we did end up with the 2 snakes being able to survive. And with the Demonic Officer, really no issue at all.
Impressive. Looks like Yuwan.
And not bad at all. Okay guys, for this game I want you to buckle down and get ready for the longest match of your life. No, it's not that bad, but it's definitely pretty crazy. I mean, what we see here is going to be the most kind of grindery match ever. I mean, it's so close all the way through to whether I was going to be Sephiroth or not, but I mean, that's the kind of game I like to see. A nice, long, drawn-out, kind of grindy game where you never know what your opponent's going to pull out next, and you require just a little bit of luck sometimes to reach your end goal, but those sort of games will always keep you right on the edge of your seat. So we did start with a really solid Baphomet, although they do start with a really good Hamlin, so that's not too surprising. Fanged Serpent is a really nice follow-up to the 3-drop, but Pure-Hearted Singer is just that little bit better, giving me the draw power, especially when not really blocking out anything big here. And we are basically prompting a counter right now, so they need to present something that can deal with what we've played.
I beg your pardon.
So going into turn 4, this deck in particular doesn't really like to play Belfon 4, not as much as just going face. Honestly, I could have probably played a Blood Moon instead of Pure-Hearted Singer, but I did feel like Pure-Hearted Singer was just that slight bit better.
Coming at you.
Analyzing Artifact Trade, not surprising there. And perfect draw off the top, Skull Saber, works out really well to counter this. Even if it doesn't take advantage of the Blood Moon.
One bite's all I need.
We've now presented a pretty pain in the ass thing for them to have to deal with. While not impossible, it's just annoying. So that's always good. You want to be able to limit what your opponent can do. Force Evolves is always good too. Which by the looks of it is the way it's going to go. A Force Evo. Or maybe not. Analyzing Artifact for 0. Should have thought about that when they played Biofab, but that's okay. We did force out at least those couple of cards, which is good. And our turn 6 is actually really solid. Fernier is great at removing these sort of boards. That's why I actually quite enjoy that card. It's also beautiful, so why wouldn't you play it? And they start going for Radiance. So it is always possible that my opponent is just playing a straight up Radiant artifact deck and not even running any Sephiroths, which in that case makes my match much easier.
Check this out. Shall I grant your wish?
And we did get at least one Belfoth here, which is great because it did give us a nice bit of draw power.
You might say I'm a genius.
Basically, we just want to be able to make sure they're burning as many cards as they can. The more they burn, the easier it's going to be for me to take the game. And we're really not worried about the artifact just coming down all the time. Especially when we have Rich the Archdemon, which just absolutely kills them. The Archdemon is a crazy card. So our Blood Moon finally expires, unfortunately just when we get our Maelstrom Serpent, which would have been absolutely perfect to play, but sometimes that's how the egg crumbles. I probably want to consider playing it a little bit later unless I do have an immediate follow-up play, but that's life, I guess. We also have the Belf, so it's not a bad option. We can get to play Belf for free, or just go straight out with Scarlet. I mean, both options are good, or, I mean, we are on Dyne, so why not both? Next turn we can prompt the Bahamut, or again, just play Reach, which is perfect. Solid. So we get to see a few cards being cycled here, which is always a bonus. Radiant Artifact, obviously going to go straight into the Belf. You can't afford to send that to face at this stage of the game. And they do finally find enough to clear me, which is always exciting.
There was nothing to be afraid of.
While going straight into an Analyzing Artifact. But Bahamut cleans us up. No qualms at all about it. Left with 2 cards in their hand. No Des so far, so that's always good. But they have had a lot of draw power, so they are bound to find it eventually. They do end up with a nice way to clear this Bahamut, throwing out basically perfect artifacts to the amount they needed to clear. So a little lucky. And a perfect way to get rid of this amulet, which is ideal. I mean, that's what I want to aim for. Removal of the amulet early is always a positive note.
You're through.
Eureka!
And some good trades. Not bad at all for them. Lucky for me, they don't really have much else, so getting rid of these is actually going to be super easy. Especially with another Bahamut and knowing they have 0 cards in hand and no real way to clear this quickly. This is really good. So they go for the Deus Ex Machina. They finally got it out of their deck. And a Hamlin for no value, so kind of unfortunate there, but not the worst thing they could have done. So to go with the Belf, which lowers us to a nice range, only so I could play the Reach and gain back a few points to play Mask. That was my order of operations. I could have just played the Reach, but then I wouldn't have been able to effectively play the March in the way I wanted to, while getting enough draw power. I really wanted that draw while I could, and set me into a range where I can actually take advantage of most of my Vengeance cards, like Maelstrom Serpent or Emeralda.
I'm actually flying.
So we finally see them start stacking cards up here. And they have the perfect substitution draw, so can't really fault that. But this is a pretty instant removal with Reach, so not really any kind of major concern.
The engine's busted.
So now it comes down to how do I want to set this up. Terra Demon being probably the optimal way to go, just because I've already got Blood Moon and we're on 10, so even if I don't attack with Terra Demon, at least it's there, and it presents something they have to clear again. I'm also really happy with Mask. When it first came out, I was like, oh, Mask is interesting, but maybe not that good. For most Control Blood decks, it's absolutely perfect, especially in this kind of meta, so it definitely come into its own. Alright, at this point, all I can really do was throw down the Maelstrom Serpent and threaten lethal, because honestly, unless they have a way to remove this Mask immediately, they're just not getting lethal off this. Saphira would be their only lethal option.
This song's for you.
While I could have went for the Demonic Officer and played a little bit of a safer game, I felt like going too safe would stop me from being able to pressure an early lethal or a quicker lethal than I really wanted. So this was definitely the play I wanted to be able to present to my opponent. They do a pretty good job at removing it. It does cost them a lot of artifacts, but Definitely made things more interesting.
You might say.
So all they really needed was any kind of rush, and they would have been able to get rid of that serpent. Luckily, without them getting rid of it, Esmeralda is a lethal. She always makes a great lethal.
This is great.
So I hope you guys did enjoy this video. This deck is actually surprisingly good, and I'm sure with Abyss it would be even better. So definitely go and check it out if you do have a couple of Abyss. Even if you don't, even just fiddling with it, try and, if you have a replacement that can fit kind of the Abyss slot, similar to what I've done with Blood Hungry Matriarch, you could at least have some fun. I mean, you might not win as many games, but it's definitely a fun one to go with. So definitely check this out. As always, the deck list will be in the description below. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe, and I will catch you guys next time. See ya.